Welcome back to the cozy side of the internet, and today I wanted to quite literally take you through step by step quickly how I have taken these couple of mug shots when you need that all important cup of tea to make sure that you guys understand that you do not need anything other than your iPhone, a good window, and some skill that you can learn here just by hitting that subscribe button. So no fancy gear, no fancy lighting. So the biggest thing I wanted to demonstrate is the power of being able to use what you already have. I'm using the natural side light. It's particularly important to ensure that you get that nice dynamic range of soft shadows. It's important to being able to add that kind of dimension and 3D-ness, and making sure that you literally use that light to be able to then bounce it to reduce any shadows and give it a more even soft look. You really don't need anything other than a piece of whiteboard, a window, and the item that you're looking for with a few props. So, talking of props, this is where the fun really starts. Styling. It's not just as simply of chucking the mug onto your coffee table and taking a shot without thinking about your angles, your composition, and how you're going to give that overall vibe. So, we want to capture that vibe where somebody just takes a moment and goes, "Oh, let's take an extra look for a second." So when I'm picking out the props, I always want 2 or 3. I don't want 1. I don't want 10. It's really important to be able to balance that. And I do find 3, depending on if I'm using fabric for layers, is a sweet spot for a lot of these things, depending on how complicated it is. But the biggest question I ask myself is, what is the vibe I'm trying to pull off? Clearly, this is a cozy Sunday morning mug of cuppa, especially if you're thinking about taking that sleek moment of curling up, grabbing a book, and having that quiet moment. So which props would echo that? Well, obviously for this one, I went for your soft florals, which gives that obviously feminine, artistic feel. I wanted to give that kind of spring, calm, but vibrant vibes. Candle's going to add obviously a little bit of warmth and depth. It's also going to allow that dreamy glow that's quite important for different vibes. But the biggest thing is we don't want to overpower this. The idea is to keep the product and keep the props as your backup dancer supportive. We don't want them stealing the show. Now, obviously, we need to talk about composition. So obviously 3 is a really good number. We've got the rule of odds. We can make a triangle out of it. We can do a flat lay for an overlook. We can do a 45-degree POV, or we can use straight on so that we've got that quote, design, and show up the finer details of the product. Biggest thing is, if it doesn't look quite right, try adding something or taking something away. If it's looking cluttered, move things around to make sure that you're getting the vibe that you're looking for. Being able to shift something slightly back and changing up your aperture will enable you to be able to suggest that it's more about, it's there to give you a vibe rather than the main point of view. So obviously the biggest thing with this, if you did want to have that dreamy background and being able to declutter that section, then using portrait mode is an absolute dream. But you can also make sure that you're doing a more selective and do that in post-processing too, to make sure that you've got everything as sharp as possible. Obviously, we tap the focus on the particular saying on the mug, and we wanted to adjust the exposure to make that more cozy vibe. Editing, I'm obviously going to use Lightroom Mobile, and I'm going to play with the warmth a little. I'm going to sharpen things up to make sure that they stand out, and I'm going to add a subtle polish to make sure that these, remember, I am not using filters or presets. They don't work. Here is the before and after, and all just with my iPhone. And for those of you thinking that this still seems a little bit challenging, I'm going to remind you that you need to be thinking about more than just the one product you've got. Obviously, you're going to have 5, 10, 15. Being able to set up a particular scenario and repeat not only gives you a cohesive look on your social media and obviously on your product page, it gives you an easier setup, and you haven't got the hard problems of trying to figure out how to re-edit each individual shot, because you should have a fairly consistent approach across the board of them. If you're interested in finding out how to batch these without losing your mind or daylight, then I'll show you how I plan and style and shoot a whole collection in one go, so that you're not setting up the scene over and over and over again. Because let's face it, we don't all have a studio setup, and we need to make sure that we're giving ourselves the time and dedication to be able to do this properly. Now, it does mean that you've got to dedicate a whole day to this to make sure that you've got your plan, you've done your setup, and you've done your shoot, and then obviously you've got your edits. But what I will say is it should be your content for the month. Not only will it enable you to get social media content, video content, but it will also enable you to obviously do a fresh update of the shop itself. Till next time, obviously keep creating, keep asking your questions down in the comments below, and remember, the right light and a little love and your phone, and you really have a powerful tool. It's more about how you use it rather than which one and how powerful it is. Powerful gear does not mean that you can take a good photo. Being the skilled person behind it is the most important part. And until next time, happy clicking.